Okay, we'll open up the subcommittee on Senate Bill 19. So before we address the amendment, the underlying bill, is there any questions in terms of the underlying bill?
Just want to know how to go about doing that, to get that 350,000 out of the steps we need to take to do it.
She's talking about the amendment. The amendment, yes, right. Okay. So that repeals the requirement of hotel keepers post a notice of rental rates in the hotel room, which would be physically impossible to try to. Good morning. And then the sign displaying the rates for rental rates. I mean, yeah, clearly these are old archaic laws. So having said that, in terms of this issue of the allowing the hotel to deny or refuse rental agreements under the 21, we could have said this is a non-germane amendment, but I think it is totally germane because the intent of this bill, the underlying bill, is to address archaic, old, unenforceable laws. And so therefore, that's exactly what this amendment does, is address one of those issues that clearly, when you think about it, when it comes to housing, I mean, we have over 55 housing parks. We have, I know for us, we don't rent to anybody under 30. And we have every once in a while people would say, well, geez, what am I going to do? And I said, don't you have anybody in your group who's coming who's over 30? Oh yeah, well then have them do the booking. That's all we require, because you get somebody with a driver's license that says they're over 30. So it's, can be workable, but obviously what she was doing was she was just booking it for herself theoretically.
So anybody prohibit people over 70 that I could get in on this?
Right, and think of that we discounts we give for people who are over, over
Is
65,
is that a
70.
problem?
Isn't that discriminating?
Yeah.
I read the original law, the RSA,
Yes.
and I read this thing. There isn't anything in there that says you can't rent to somebody under 21, so I'm not clear on why we have to put anything in at all.
Well, that was the problem. It just says age discrimination.
But nothing that says you can't.
Well, the problem was what was the legislative intent and what's age discrimination. And there was in housing, which is not technically this issue is hotels, but in housing, it was 18. Which is just insane to me to think that as a landlord I would be forced to rent to somebody who's 19 years old. I mean, talking about a party palace.
This is just I mean, if this came to court, wouldn't they see that what she was doing and throw it out? I mean, why is she so
You have more faith in our court system.
I mean, she's obviously scamming the system.
She read the letter of the law. That's the problem. We always say the devil's in the details. So Mike, you want to offer up anything else, or do you feel like we said all? Well, the case is, so how was she winning these cases if it doesn't specifically, the answer Representative Spears' question, if it doesn't specifically say 18, why is it the assumption that if you're under 21 you could not, just the act of being over 18 but less than 21, why did she have standing to pursue the case?
Yeah, so first, Mike Summers with New Hampshire Lodging and Restaurant Association. So I think it's a good question. I think the challenge is because it doesn't clarify either in definitions or other what age means. One of the questions from some of our members has been, well, could we be compelled as a business to rent a hotel room to a 7-year-old? So I guess where is the line, right? So that really creates the question and the problem, which is what I think that this individual is trying to exploit, is that the fact that it's not clear. So really what we're attempting to do in this is not necessarily change the discrimination statute, but just add a caveat or a carve out where it says, it kind of clarifies where the threshold would be. And then I think that that would clean up all of this. That's the intent and the hope.
Right.
But the amendment says that the hotel is not to mean that the hotel can't rent to somebody under 21,
Correct.
which means they could rent to somebody who's 7.
Yes, but no business would, because
They
technically.
may not.
No, right, and for
right.
just business protocols, a business would not want to enter into a contractual arrangement with anybody who is under the age of 18 anyway, right? For obvious reasons. And I think that the real issue for us is, just take a couple of examples off the top. So first and foremost springs to mind is prom night, right? So you have an 18, 19, or 20-year-old who rents a room and invites all their friends over, and there's underage drinking and everything that leads before and then after the prom and those kinds of things. And then that liability all blows back on the hotel, which ultimately also leads to, more than likely property damage and God knows what they did in the hotel room, right? So that's really the concern. So that's just a really like a simple example of what could potentially happen. It's why a lot of these properties have these 21 and under thresholds, because they don't want underage drinking in there and all the ancillary problems that would come with that.
Okay. So now if I'm 21, I know I'm under 21, the hotel says I can't rent, I don't choose to rent to anyone under 21. Is she going to come along and now say, well, I'm going to sue you because you're discriminating based on age?
If we pass this, that we're leaving it up to the hotel owner to decide that.
Okay, so this says we're going to allow the hotel to make the decision.
Correct.
Can she sue the hotel for making bad decisions? Or making good decisions? I don't.
I think this squashes her thinking that she should be pursuing New Hampshire hotels. I think that she'll go look for the next state that had the same. I don't know. I actually think that we should go much further than this, but I'll bring that bill in next year. Because I truly believe that as long as I can rationalize, I can give a rational, what is the reason why I do it, and that we don't waver, we are consistent, and that is true for us at 30. But we're technically right now, vacation rentals is we treat it as we're not hotels, despite
Private property,
despite what hotels might feel about us, but that we're rental, so we're just a landlord tenant. So that throws us under a whole nother set of scary statutes, and that is 18, and we have a joke we're saying is that we don't. When people want to rent the castle, they think they're rock stars, and they just trash the place, and and they move furniture around. They think, they do good crazy things, and yeah, we hit them for the deposit, but hotels don't have deposits. They take your credit card and say that
Charge the credit card damages.
theoretically that's what that fine print you sign, but you might not know it, but that's what it says, that you're liable for the.
You got a deposit, could you, if it didn't meet, if it went over your deposit, could you charge the credit card for more?
So that's an interesting question, because right now more and more of our renters are using Verbo, who we're doing. So Verbo has the credit card. We don't have it. So we can set a dollar amount what the deposit is, and Verbo theoretically puts that amount on hold on their credit card, but we have to then go through them to get our deposit. So we have never. The ones we had were the old days where we did have problems, and in those days we actually had to check. And that's what we tell people. He said we would much rather you book with us directly, so we have that $775 in the bank, and then it's just us to credit them. But that we haven't, we've never had anybody do more than that. But we had one time, they were just, every room was trash, the dishes, they didn't do any of the dishes, they didn't clean, they didn't do anything. And we actually have a clause in there because our neighbors, the big freak out for the neighbors was all this traffic, and their fear of a castle means every woman in the world wants to get married in it. And so that's why we limited it to 22. But then we went on to say but you only can have 10 cars to limit the road traffic. And so the reason we chose cars rather than people is because that's one thing our caretaker can do. He can go up there in the morning,
Okay.
early in the morning, because he's an early riser, and he can count cars.
Your plan is next year to tighten this up a little
Yeah,
bit more.
my plan is to bring something where I was just talking to Mike, that I'm something along the lines of is that I'm not sure what they meant, what the legislative intent of age discrimination meant, but I think what the best I can fathom was the issue is that no one would just use that, pull it out and say, okay, that's why they didn't give the person the apartment, why they didn't rent to them, and say, well, because you're too young, or say, so that you have to have a policy, you have to have a rationale for your policy, and you most important is you have to be consistent, okay? So that no, you don't say, okay, I'm not going to rent to you because maybe it's not just your age, might be something else categorically why you're not renting it to that person, and just using age as an excuse. So I can only rationalize that's why they did that, why age is there, is they, saying we don't want you to say that. You got to be more specific. So in my case, what I'm arguing is that if you have a community that's 55 and older, you should be able to say that's our business plan. That's our our marketing niche is that we're 55 and older, and so no, we don't rent to anybody who's under 55. Period, and have no exceptions. But some people might be upset with that because I don't know. Sometimes people, their family that's still there.
All right.
So yeah, Riverton.
Thank you for taking my
Pull the
question.
microphone close to you.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta literally have it right in
Yeah.
your face.
So this is not different than running any other business because whoever is the owner will decide the policy, decide whom to do it. Because as a company owner, if I am not hiring somebody, I have to give them a reason why I'm not hiring. These are the reason. These
Not
are my
hiring.
policies.
Right.
We should not try to put more rules into that place. Let the owner decide. Let them have a policy. If somebody sues the owner, they don't have a policy, they might sue them because somebody might say that I do not like you. That's not the right reason.
That's correct.
So I think we should not tighten any of the things, in my opinion. Keep it to the owner because that property belongs to the owner. They know they're renting it to whom. They should have a policy in place. They should show that, maybe display it on the website and
Right.
follow that rule.
Exactly.
But I think I agree with you. And if this had said that the policy is up to the hotel as to what age groups they will allow, something like that in law type words, then that would be fine. The hotel gets to decide. But we're just kind of,
It doesn't
Well,
say-
the key thing is it says for having a policy. So in your policy, you could say there are some parameters in where you would allow it. But to me, yes, I'm much more looking for that draconian number. So look who's here. You have anything to say about this amendment? Perfect. Music to my ears. Okay. The word is policy, and we'll get to discuss it next year. Okay. Everybody okay? Okay. Want to read the names off of who's on this business subcommittee?
Okay, Representative McAleer, Representative Spear, Representative Pressa, sorry, my mouth is not working. Thaxton, Representative Patuchik, Salvi, and Representative.
Okay, so those are the members of the Business Committee. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many did I count?
It's 7.
7. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then out to pass as amended. I'll make the motion and seconded by Representative Thaxton. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So moved unanimously. And we'll wait the 4 minutes and then executive. Do I have enough people?
11 o'clock.
Oh, 11. Okay. All right. I know Keith is downstairs.
Should we do another one? Here.
Yeah.
And so again, same
Yeah,
thing.
same vote. All right, we'll go into executive session. And we'll take up the bill. We start with the amendment. And I will move ought to pass, seconded by Representative Burrows. Ought to pass on the amendment number 1689. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Representative Katuchik,
Yes.
Representative Ammon,
Osborne's-
not here, excuse me, Representative Osborne.
Yes.
Representative Ammon is not here. Representative Cole is not here. The clerk is here, and it's yes. Susan Purcelli is not here. Billy Walsh is not here. Representative Miles,
Yes.
Representative Pressa,
Yes.
Representative Burrows,
Yes.
Representative Herbert is not here. Representative McAleer,
Yes.
Representative Spear,
Yes.
Representative Gibbs is not here. Representative Sullivan is not here. Representative Charassa is not here. Representative Salvi,
Yes.
Representative,
Okay, now,
You left me.
Representative, remember we heard Cole, he's no longer on here.
Uh-huh.
Scratch his name out.
Chris
Okay.
Thaxton.
And Representative Taxton,
okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
and then Representative Burrows.
And she
Yeah,
has-
you say yes?
Yep.
I'm a yes.
And
Okay.
you-
Okay. The motion is unanimous,
What is number 10, 11?
11.
11 to zip. All those in favor, okay, now is the motion is ought to pass as amended.
Did we do another one?
Yep. Okay, so I moved, second by Representative Burrows, ought to pass as amended.
Okay.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay, Representative Katuchik,
Yeah.
Representative Osborne.
Yes.
Representative Ammon is not here. Representative Thaxton,
Yes.
Representative Post says yes. Representative Purcelli is not here. Representative Walsh is not here. Representative Miles,
Yes.
Representative Cressa,
Yes.
Representative Burrows,
Yes.
Representative Herbert is not here. Representative McAleer,
Yes.
Representative Spear,
Yes.
Representative Gibbs is not here. Representative Sullivan is not here. Representative Charassa is not here. Representative Salvi,
Yes.
Representative Hunt.
Yes. Vote pass, the vote 11 to zip. All those in favor of placing on the consent calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, so moved unanimously, and we're out of exec session.